All right, our review probably won't take that long. After your review, you just need to upload it. So if you don't have this review copied, then you need to start taking some notes because you will have to upload your review at the end. If you're watching this Zoom after it's been recorded, same thing, just make sure you take notes and upload those notes. So that's how you're going to get your grade for today. Those not on Zoom, that's how they'll get their grade today. They will upload a copy of the review, a filled in copy, or the notes that they took. So after we finish our review, it'll be a good time to go back and make sure that we've completed all our assignments. If there's any, especially on EDIA, the little white boxes up there, you want to make sure that all of those are gone. We don't want any of those up there. So make sure that you get those down and off of there. Also remember, if you're not happy with your quiz grades, you can go back and fix them. Okay, they are pretty much unlimited. But when you do that, for example, Erin, I'm gonna call you out, and I'm very sorry. She went back and fixed hers, and she shot me an email and said, "Hey, I fixed my quiz just to let you know." So that would be great if you guys would do that, because otherwise I'm checking like literally every day, every single assignment. So if you happen to go back and retake a quiz, so yesterday maybe your quiz grade wasn't as great as you wanted it to be, you can go back and redo it and just shoot me an email that says, "Hey, I did this quiz. Can you make sure that you update my grade," or whatever. That's fine. You don't, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. But I do appreciate it if you'll do that. If not, at some point I'll get there, but it might be a little while after I check it. If you go ahead and tell me, I'll do it and update it in the grade book as soon as you tell me. All right. So Unit 2 review, the first thing that we talked about was piecewise functions. So all we had to do was state open intervals, domain and range, which we already know, and the coordinates of any relative minimums or maximums. Okay, so you guys are going to have to do this on your test tomorrow. The first one says state the open intervals on which f is increasing. So we want where the graph is going up. So I'm going to do all those in blue. So at the very beginning, it's increasing. Guys, we got to be on time. Got to be on time. Then it turns to decreasing. I'm going to do decreasing in pink. Then it changes again. And it does increasing. And then decreasing. And then increasing. And remember that this straight line is neither increasing or decreasing. It is called constant. And then it decreases over here. So that line in the middle, just to throw that out there in case you see it, is constant. Priscilla, I just got your email, and maybe you didn't hit submit because Tessia, sorry Tessia, I didn't mean to call you out, but Tessia was the same way. So just go back and check and make sure you hit submit. I see that you did some of it, but I want to make sure that you get all of it, okay? So just go back and hit submit, just check on it. All right, state that open intervals, open just means we're using parentheses, on which f is increasing. So increasing was all blue. We only use our x coordinates. So it starts at -3 and it stays blue until it hits 0 on the x. And again, this is like domain. So if you need to get like a piece of paper or something. So right here is at -3, it stops at 0. Then it becomes pink at blue again on 3, stops at 4, starts again at 5 to 6, and that's all the blue that I see, okay? So that is your increasing. Same thing on the next one, except for we're decreasing, so we're looking at all the pink. So if you guys are looking at that, that's all the blue for increasing. Decreasing is all the pink. So the pink starts on the x coordinate of 0, and it drops till 3. It picks back up at 4, drops to 5. We skip over until 7 is when we hit pink again, all the way down to 9. Okay, and they're all open. so parentheses. And then part C says state the open intervals on which F is constant. So the only place it's constant is from 6 to 7. So that's it. Okay. The next part says state the domain. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Remember, domain goes left to right. And on domain, you have to make sure that you use brackets or parentheses depending on what you have. So if we look here, the leftmost point is -3 and it is included. So you have to use a bracket. You guys know that. Don't change that up any at all. Okay. We don't have any holes. We don't have any gaps. We don't have anything crazy. And then we stop at 9. It is closed, so we close it up. That's your domain. Your range is your lowest to your highest. So if we look this graph, our lowest point, nothing goes below 0 and everything is included because it's solid. We go up, no holes, no craziness until we get to the top point at 4. Again, we've been doing domain and range since the beginning of the year, so that should be a given question on the test. All right. E is relative minimums. Remember, that is anywhere it changes from decreasing to increasing. Decreasing to increasing. So pink was decreasing to blue. When do I change from pink to blue? And you guys know what minimums are, and there's multiple minimums on here. So one of those minimums is right here. So we just write the coordinate. That coordinate is 3, 0. There's also a minimum right here at 5, 0. The next one asks for maximums. Maximums are increasing to decreasing. So that would be the opposite, blue to pink. And there are also 2 of those. One right there and one right there. So those 2 coordinates, 0, 3. And it doesn't matter which order you list them in. And this one is 4, 4. Those are maximums. All right, so then it asks you for the 5-part piecewise function. 5-part piecewise function. So where are your 5 parts? I'm gonna grab a different highlighter for a minute. I don't like that this one is 5 parts. I think the one on your test might be 3. I'm not sure. But this is the part that a lot of people have trouble with. But what I tried to do to make it a little bit easier on your test is it's kind of like, it's not multiple choice, but like choose which one it is, if that makes sense. So you'll see them. So we have a U shape, which is quadratic. We have an absolute value. And then we have 3 linears. Okay, so I split it up. And your graph ends here and ends here. So all those lines are going to be crazy boundary lines. And again, I think on the review, Ms. Gordon actually made this review, and I think she just wanted to give you as many like functions to write as she possibly could. So she wanted to include all the functions that you could possibly have on your test. Okay, So be ready for that. So the first one is a quadratic. And remember, I told you the easiest way to do that right now is just put it in your calculator. So, and she gave you all the points over here, but you don't need them because you can see them. So I told you to go into stat and edit. And I have some crazy stuff in here, but we don't need it. That's for stats. Put your coordinates in. I have -3, 0 is one of my coordinates. I have 0, 3. And remember, for quadratic, you have to have at least 3 coordinates. And then I have the other one at 3, 0. So I'll pop it back down so you guys can see a little bit better. So put in your 3 coordinates for your quadratic. I'm going to just write them up here so you guys can see them and the graph at the same time. You're going to go to stat, calc, and quadratic regression. And that's your first one. Now we know -0.3 is -1/3. So this is what your graph looks like. -1/3 x squared. There's nothing in the middle. And then there's a +3. I will go back and write the rest of the piecewise in just a minute. I'm going to work on just the equations right now, and then we'll work on the boundaries, okay? So this absolute value, remember we use our vertex point in our formula. We have y equals a absolute value of x plus your vertex x. Remember we changed that sign plus that coordinate. Your vertex is 4, 4. So x minus 4 because we changed that sign, and then a +4. And then we use our slope right here. So our slope is up 4 over 1. And remember, it's upside down. Okay, up 4 over 1, and it's upside down. That's the only one you can't do in the calculator. All right, the only one you can't do in the calculator. So that's for this one. For this little blue linear function, you can just type it in to your calculator if you want to. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to clear these out. Again, this is the easiest way that I think there is to do it. You have the coordinate, that's not it, 5, 0. And then you have the coordinate 6, 1. And then we do linear, stat, calc, linear regression. Just so you don't have to work as hard. And it's 1x minus 5. Or just x minus 5. This one is constant, which means it's just going to be a number. You guys could also put that in too, just in case. I'm just going to show you that there is no point for you to put it in. Okay, 6, 1 and 7, 1. Stat, calc, linear regression. Again, you should not have to do this, but just in case. And you see that you don't get an x, but you just get 1. So this function is just a 1. And then the last one, go into stat, put your coordinates in. 7, 1 is already in there. Your next coordinate is 9, 0. Stat, calc, linear regression. And your last one is -0.5 or -1/2 x plus, and you can use 4.5. I don't mind the decimal show. I don't mind the decimals. All right. So then I'm going to go down and actually write this. Again, it was really crappy because it was a 5-part. You do not have a 5-part on your test. Okay. Here's what it would look like. I'm going to write all my functions the same order that I found them. -3x squared plus 3. And then I had -4, absolute value of x minus 4 plus 4. And then I had x minus 5. And then I had 1. And then I had -1/2 x plus 4.5. And again, I don't care whether it's decimals or fractions. And if you gave me -0.3 repeating right there, that is perfectly fine. Don't stress out about it. So the last step to the piecewise is determining where it's at. Okay, where it's at. So the interval, that very first one, look at your orange lines. and it's between -5 and 3. So that's what you're going to put, between -5 and 3. So all of them are going to look like this. You just have to tell the numbers. Okay, that's it. So the next one is between 3, I don't know why I put a comma there, and 5. The next one is between 5 and 6. The next one is between 6 and 7. And the last one is between 7 and 9. And again, that is those orange vertical lines. And again, it's like choose the right one. Which one is it? You'll see what I'm talking about. Kind of like on our last goal when you had to pick like left 6, right 4, down 3, those kind of check boxes. That's what it's going to look like. All right. Any questions on this? Everybody got it? I'm going to move it in just a second. Everybody good in here? Y'all good? Okay. Part 2 is solving absolute value and inequalities, equations and inequalities. So remember, equations for your first step, you get your absolute value alone. Then you set up 2 equations. And then you solve. So this is for equations. Get your absolute value alone, set up 2 equations, and solve. When you move to inequalities, you do the same steps 1 through 3. But then you add a 4th step where you test values. So for equations, get it all by itself, set up 2 equations and solve. Make sure you check those answers because you might have extraneous solutions. And then steps 1 through 3, you solve and test values. You don't have to check extraneous solutions on that. You're going to check your number line. All right, so there are 10 of these. And then there are 10 factorings after that. Okay. All right. So here's what you have first. Absolute value of x plus 2 minus 3 equals 3. I have to get the absolute value by itself, so I need to get rid of this -3. So I'm going to add +3. That leaves me with x plus 2 and absolute value bars equals 6. Now that we finished step 1, absolute value is alone, we're going to set up 2 equations. X plus 2 equals +6. X plus 2 equals -6. We subtract to solve, so subtract 2, and again, I do all of them at the same time. So you get x equals 4, and x equals -8. Go back and check and make sure it's okay. 4 plus 2 is 6. The absolute value is a +6. Minus 3 is 3, so that one does work. Plug in -8 plus 2 is -6. Absolute value is +6. Minus 3 is +3. So they both work. Look at your next one. I have a -3 in the front. These are the ones that most people mess up on because they try to add 3 to the other side. Realize that this is not an add 3. This is a divide by -3. Divide by -3. If it's add or subtract, it's going to be in the back like this, or it'll have it in between that and the absolute value bar. Okay. So then I get absolute value of -1 plus n is equal to +6. Absolute values by itself, so set up 2 equations. -1 plus n equals +6. -1 plus n equals -6. Add 1, and again, I do them both at the same time. you get n equals 7, and n equals -5. I plug it in to make sure it works. If you don't want to do it in your head, type in -3. You go to math, over to num and absolute value. -1 plus, I got 7 to begin with. Does that equal -18? It does. Do it again, but instead of 7, I got -5. It does equal -18. Okay, just check your answers, make sure you get them right. The last three are exactly the same. There's nothing any different about them at all. So I'm probably only going to do 2 of those and then we'll move on. Okay, if y'all are okay with that. Y'all good? All right. So the first one I'm going to subtract 10 because I got to get it by itself. So I get -8 absolute value of 7x plus 3 is equal to 88. We're going to divide by -8. Remember, if it's squished up against the absolute value, that means divide. And we get absolute value of 7x plus 3 is equal to -11. You should know at this point that absolute value can never equal a negative. If it can't equal a negative, this one is no solution. If you happen to work it out and you plug it back in, you can see that the numbers won't be the same, okay? So you can finish it out if you want to, but there's no point. Anytime you have absolute value equal to a negative, it's going to be no solution. Remember, absolute value is always positive. All right, we're going to do number 4, and then I'll move on to the inequalities. Same thing, to get the absolute value by itself, I'm going to add 7. I get 5, absolute value of 10 minus 3p is equal to 25. It's right in front of the absolute, so I have to divide to get rid of it. I get 10 minus 3p is equal to 5. Now I can set up my 2 equations because it's equal to a positive. Equals +5. And I'm going to do another one down here because I wrote too big and I'm running out of room. Subtract 10. You get -3p equals -5. Divide by -3, and you get p equals +5/3. Leave it just like that. Again, if you want to check it, this is one that you might not be able to do in your head. Type it in, 5 math, absolute value. 10 minus 3 times 5/3. Get outside of that absolute value. Minus 7, we get 18, so we know it works. The other one, subtract 10. You get -3p equals -15. Divide by -3, and you get p equals 5. And again, if you plug it in, it'll work. It gives you 18. Any questions on solving equations, absolute value equations? Number 5 is exactly like number 4, it's just different numbers. Okay. Look at number 6. Inequalities, we have that 4th step where we take these values that we solved and we make a number line with them. So this one already has the absolute value by itself, so step 1 is done. We're going to make 2 equations. -8b is equal to 48. And -8b is equal to -48. We divide by -8. And the first number we get is 6 times 8 is 48, so -6. And +6. That becomes my test values. So on a number line, -6 comes first, and then +6. I need a value less than -6. I try to use easy numbers, so I pick -10. Between -6 and 6, I'm going to pick 0. And greater than 6, I'm going to pick 10. Test these values in your original, okay, the black one, test it in there. -8 times -10 is positive 80. The absolute value of 80 is 80. Is that less than 48? No, it is not. Okay, one more time. -8 times -10 is positive 80. The absolute value is still positive 80, is not less than 48, so we put an X. -8 times 0 is 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0. 0 is less than 48. Then the last one, -8 times 10 is -80. The absolute value is positive 80, and that is not less than 48. So how do you write your solution? Just like we did on the front, it's between -6 and 6. It's always less than. To tell if it's equal to, we look at our answer right here, our problem. It is not equal to, so we are done. Make sure, here's where a lot of people mess up too. Make sure these values are the ones that you got when you solved for B. Don't let them be your test values, okay? Don't put -10 and 10. A lot of people do that. All right. Look at your next one. I'm going to get this by itself by subtracting 5. I get the absolute value of 4 minus 9b is less than 40. When you get the absolute value by itself, set up two equations. 4 minus 9b is equal to 40, and 4 minus 9b is equal to -40. To solve, I'm going to subtract 4 to each side. I get -9b equals 36. Divide by -9, and I get b equals -4. Over here, -9b equals -44. Divide by -9. If you're not sure if it works or not, you can type it in, -44 over -9. Math enter just gives you 44 over 9. So there's nothing that you can do. However, you can see that it's 4.8. Okay, so 4.8 repeating. Here's my test values. The littlest one was -4. The biggest one was 44 over 9, which we said was 4.8. So a value less than -4 is -10. Between is 0. And greater, I'm going to use 10. And again, I use 10 because it's easy for me to do in my head. We're going to test those values. So math, absolute value of 4 minus 9 times -10 on the first one plus 5. So I'm plugging it in right here. 4 minus 9 times -10, absolute value plus 5. Is 99 less than 45? No. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do my +10 just because I have it here and it's easy. It is also not going to be good. And then I'm going to plug in 0 and I'm going to get 9, and that is less than 45. So again, the way I write my answer, and again, if you give me decimals here, I'm okay with that. Don't stress out about that too much, okay? -4, x is between 44 over 9. It's always less than. We looked back at our problem. There is no equal to, so we're done with the problem. I'm going to skip number 8. It's the exact same as number 7. I'm going to go to number 9. To solve this, I'm going to do this on paper just so I don't have to squish it up. You guys are more than welcome to do it on your paper. That's fine. I'm just copying the problem. I'm not doing any work yet. And again, I just didn't want to squish it up. So here's our problem. 6, absolute value of 3n plus 3 minus 2 is greater than or equal to negative 56. We have to get our absolute value by itself. So we're going to add 2 to begin with. We get 6, absolute value of 3n plus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 54. We're going to divide by 6. We get the absolute value of 3n plus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 9. I have my absolute value by itself. From here, you should know the answer, but it's okay if you don't. Your test values are going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you absolute value is always going to be greater than a negative, always. So this one is all real solutions, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the test value so you can see what that looks like. Okay. So we have to start our two equations. 3n plus 3 equals negative 9, and 3n plus 3 equals positive 9. Subtract 3. I get 3n equals negative 12, and 3n equals 6. When I divide by 3, I get n equals negative 4, and n equals 2. Those become my test values. Make sure you put the littlest on the bottom or the lowest in a 2. Again, I like easy numbers to plug in, so I'm going to pick negative 10, 0, and 10. Make sure that those numbers fit in that value. I can choose negative 10 because it's less than negative 4. I can choose 0 because it's between those two, and I can choose 10 because it's greater than 2. So we're plugging back in up here. Again, use your calculator if you need to. This is the function we're plugging into. 6, math, absolute value. 3 times our first number was negative 10, plus 3, get outside the absolute value, minus 2. We got 160. That is greater than negative 56, so it worked. I'm going to go to the other end just because I can delete this negative out. And 196 is greater than negative 56. And same thing, I can just delete the 1 to put the 0 in. And I get 16, which is also. So when you get all 3, it's all real numbers, all solutions, whatever you guys want to write. Okay. All right, and then I want to do number 10 because this is also when people like to mess up. Seriously, listen to this one, okay? You cannot put this 10 and 4 together, okay? It is not like that. It is just like having 6 minus 2x. You can't subtract 6 and 2x, okay? So the first thing that you need to do on one like this is get rid of this front number. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. That leaves us with negative 4, absolute value of 6x plus 4, less than or equal to negative 16. We divide by the negative 4. If we were worried about our inequality, we would switch it right there, but we're not worried about our inequality. Okay, we are not worried about our inequality. Make your two equations. 6x plus 4 equals 4, and 6x plus 4 equals negative 4. Subtract 4, we get 6x equals 0. Divide by 6, x equals 0. Subtract 4, we get 6x equals negative 8. Divide by 6. We can reduce it into 4/3. I don't care if you give me negative 8 over 6. I don't care. Okay. Not a big deal either way. Those become your test values. Negative 4/3 is smaller. Remember that is negative 1.3 repeating. 0 is your larger one, so we cannot pick 0 as a test value this time. Okay, we cannot pick 0 as a test value. A number less than -1 is -10. Between -1.3 and 0 is -1. Okay, that's what I would pick. You can pick -1/2 if you want to. It doesn't matter. That's just a harder one to plug in. And then greater than 0, I'm going to pick 10. We're going to plug those into the original. We had a -10 minus 4. Absolute value 6 times. My first one was -10 plus 4 outside of the absolute value. So all I did was plug in -10 right here. I get -234. Is that less than -26? It surely is. Same thing, I'm going to do my +10 just so I can delete that negative out. -266 is definitely smaller than that. And then the last one is -1. And we get -18. Is -18 less than -26? No, it is not. And this is why I wanted to do this one, is to make sure you had one like this that you had an answer for. So when it's split like this, it's going to be an or. It's less than -4/3. So this check mark came less than. What is -10? It is less than -4/3. Or x is greater than 0. Go back. Since it's equal to, these are equal to. So this is how you write it separately. Guys, use this on your test tomorrow. All right, and then the last part is factoring. The last part is factoring. So remember the little flow chart that I gave you, and if you forgot it, your first step to factoring is always GCF. So your first step is GCF, no matter what, okay? Then you either have 2 terms, 3 terms, or 4 terms. 2 terms is either going to be only GCF, or it's going to be pairs and share. But remember, it has to be a minus, okay? It cannot be a plus. It has to be a minus. If it's 3 terms, you're either going to do the cheater method. That's where it's just x squared. There's no number in front. Or you're going to do slide and divide. So it'll have a number in front, something like 2x squared, 3x squared, whatever. You're going to have a number in front. And then remember, 4 terms, the only thing that you're going to do is group. Okay. And that's where you group the first 2 and the last 2. So what I do is I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to factoring, and I try to do all the 2 ones first, like all the binomials first, okay? So anything that has 2 terms, that's what I'm going to look at first. So I'm going to start with number 3. Is everybody good with this chart? Anybody need me to hold it for a minute? All right. So I'm going to start with number 3, and remember, we always do GCF first. So I always like to break them down. 10 is 2 and 5 and n. And if you look, there is an n in common. There, 2 terms is either GCF or GCF and pairs and share, okay? Once I get that n out, there are no pairs. So that's as much as I had to do. Write down the leftovers. It was n minus 10. That's it. That is it. So then the next 2 term that I see is number 7. So I'm going to go to number 7. Again, I'm pretty lazy, and you guys can skip around too. It's fine. I don't mind. Number 7, 45 is 9 times 5. So 3, 3, and 5, and 3 p's. There's a minus. 20 is 4 and 5. So 2, 2, and 5, and a p. First step is to pull out what's in common. If you guys look, there's a 5 and a P in common. And then see what you notice. 2 3s, 2 P's, 2 2s. So it's pairs and share. Okay, so you got to factor more. So how do I do that? Each gets a 3 and a P in the front and a 2 in the back. One is positive, one is negative. Does not matter what order you put them in. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So GCF first, and then if pairs are left over, we're going to split them up and share them. On the next one, number 8, we have 2 X's and a Y. We have a minus, which means we may could do pairs and shares. We'll have to see 3, 3, and 3 Y's. Look and see what they have in common. They have a Y in common, so we're going to pull that out. Notice what they have left, 2 X's, 2 3's, 2 Y's. So there's an X in the front that we're going to share, a 3 and a Y in the back we're going to share. One is positive, one is negative. Again, I'm going to do 10, 11, and 12 you're not going to be able to do, okay? I'll make sure that on your test you don't have that one, or I don't count them against you. If they're on there tomorrow, if you have 11 and 12, we're doing that next chapter. So if you see a cube that you can't factor, we'll talk about it in a minute. These are not going to be on there. If they are, we'll deal with it, okay? So do the best you can. If they're on there, then I can either take them out. I'll check today. And if I don't take them off for some ungodly reason, then they will not count against you because we're doing that next unit, okay? 4x squared minus 64. I break down 4, it's 2, 2, x and x. 64 is 8 times 8. 8 is 3 2's. So this is going to be 6 2's. If you have a GCF, you want to take it out, regardless of whether you see pairs or not. You want to take out the GCF. So they do have 2 2's in common. I'm going to take out a 4. And then if you look, we have pairs. We have X's in the front. And we have 2 2's in the back, which is actually 4's. 2 2's in the back. And then one is positive, one is negative. So again, you do want to take out a GCF if you can, and then pairs and share. All right. So the next ones that I would go to are ones without a number in front. So like number 4, I would go to number 4 next because they're easy. First thing I'm going to do is see if it has a GCF. So we have n, 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 a big fat plus, n, n, a big fat minus, and 12 is 4 and 3 and an n. And you guys can see that they have an n in common. So that leaves us with n squared plus n minus 12. So there's your first step, GCF. Now keep bringing this n down. It's part of your answer, but let's try to do this factoring right here. It's cheater method, factors of the last, which is negative 12, that add to the middle, which is 1. Remember, if there's not a number there, it's 1. I showed you how to cheat and do this in your calculator. If you don't know your factors, we have a negative 12 divide x, negative 12 divide x plus x, and we're looking for a 1. Weigh in, let's see, table set, let's start at 0. All right, looking for negative 1, right there it is. Oh, positive 1 is what I'm looking for. 4 and negative 3. So keep your GCF, we're just gonna bring it down. And then your factors of negative 12 that add to 1 are positive 4 and negative 3. So GCF first, and then anything else you can do. So all the rest have numbers in front, but I'll look at 1 and 2 in a minute because it has 4 terms. It just looks a little longer. Let's move to number 6. It looks a little bit easier than number 5. That's kind of big numbers, and I don't really want to do that. So 7 n, n, looking for a GCF, 2, 2, 2 n. 16 is 8 and 2, so it's 4 2's. I don't have a GCF on this one. Okay. When you don't have a GCF, that's okay. You just go to the next one. Since it's 3 terms and I have a number in front, I have to do slide and divide. So 7 times 16, I have n squared minus 8n plus 112. Use your cheater method. I'm going to go into y equals and put in 112. I'm going to look for my table and I'm looking for -8. What happened? You guys see I was at -24, -23, -22, 21, and then it started going back up. What do you think that tells you? Well, first of all, it should tell you to check this, make sure I did it right. I did. I don't see a -8. This one is not factorable. Not factorable. All right. I'm going to move to number 5. 18 is 9 times 2, so 3, 3, 2, n. 6 is 2 and 3 and n. And if you're not sure about 84, you should be. But if you're not, I would start with divide 2. So 2 and 42. I know 42 is 6 times 7. So 7, 2, and 3. Get it a little bit smaller for yourself. Okay. You could have done 4 and 21. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you can see. Do they have a GCF? What do they have in common? Come on, guys. The longer you wait to answer, the longer you have to sit here and listen to me.
A 2 and 3.
A 2 and a 3. Thank you. Which gives me a 6, leaves me with 3n squared minus n minus 14. So there's your GCF. Since there's a number in front on the inside, I need to see if we can slide and divide. So when I multiply that out, I get n squared minus n minus, again, use your calculator if you're not sure, 42. Let's check to see if it works. I'm doing -42, and I'm looking for factors of -1. There's -11, 12, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. There it is. -7 and -6. But remember, I did slides, so now I have to divide. So my final answer, and I'm going to write it kind of sideways. I took a GCF of 6 out. 7/3 will not reduce, so I put the 3 in the front. 3n minus 7. And 6/3 is 2. So n minus 2. 3 more and we're done. 3 more. All right, same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you there is no GCF. There is no GCF, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do slide divide. So we're going to slide this over. We get x squared minus 10x plus 25. If you can do it in your head, do it in your head. If you can't, use your calculator. No harm at all in using your calculator. You'll have plenty of time on your test. You get extra time on your final exam to use your calculator on every question, okay? So don't stress about time or anything like that. I'm looking for -10. There's -10.17 right there, -5 and -5. I did slide, so I have to divide. Reduce it, remember that, 1 and 5, same thing on this one. So your 2 factors, you're going to slide that 5 to the front, are 5x minus 1 and 5x minus 1. I would be happy with this. If it's multiple choice on your test, they're probably going to write it as 5x minus 1 squared. And they can do that because they're the same sign. Don't get this confused. These are not able to put together like this, okay? So if it's two different signs, you have to write it. If same sign, you can use the square. All right, last two is grouping. Last two is grouping. So it's 4 terms. So we group the first two, group the last two. You also want to check these for a GCF, but I'm going to tell you that this one does not have one. 35 is 7 and 5, which it'll reduce with this, but it won't with either of these. So there is no GCF in this one at all. Now look for the GCF in each pair. So 35 is 7 and 5, 3 X's. 42 is 7 and 6, and 2 X's. So what do they have in common? They have a 7 and 2 X's. So I'm going to pull that out. A 7 and 2 X's. Write down what you didn't circle. In the front was a 5X. We had a minus, and in the back was 2 times 3, which is 6. Your other parenthesis, when you solve it out, should look exactly the same. If it doesn't, you did something wrong, okay? So negative 40X, we don't ever want to start with a negative, so I'm going to make this part a negative. 40 is 8 and 5, so 2, 2, and 5. 48 is 6 times 8, so 6 is 2 and 3. And 8 is 3 2s. I forgot my X over here. What do they have in common? 3 2s, which is 8. We have 5X. And 2 times 3 is 6 left. And remember, since we took out that negative, it does change that sign. Your final answer is your 2 sets of parentheses. Write down, what do they have in common? 5X minus 6. What do they have left over? Write what's outside. 7X squared minus 8. This is your final. We're going to do that one more time. Okay. We'll get number 2. 2 does have a GCF. What does it have a GCF of? What do we think? We know they're all divisible by what? Definitely 2. 24 is like 4 and 6. So I may try some combinations of that. So what about like 6? 112 is not, so that's fine. Maybe 8, but 28 is not divisible by 8. I just try to check everything. What about 4? Because that's a pretty big number. 28 divided by 4, 96 divided by 4, and you know 24 is divided by 4. So I think our GCF is going to be 4. You can break them down. 112 is really crappy to break down, but definitely has a 4 in common. So I'm going to pop that 4 out real fast. 112 divided by 4 was 28. 28 divided by 4 was 7. 96 divided by 4 was 24. And 24 divided by 4 was 6. So this is what it should look like now. We're going to group the first 2 and the last 2. Just bring that 4 down. Just keep bringing it down every single time. If you know your factors, I'm not going to break this down. Both of these are divisible by 7. And both have an n squared. That leaves 4n plus 1. 7n squared divided by 7n squared is 1. Negative 24 and negative 6 have a negative 6 in common. That leaves you with a positive 4n plus 1. Again, you can break it down if you need to. I don't need to on this one, but if you do, you go ahead and do that. Write down your GCF. Write down the 2 that were in common, 4n plus 1. And then write down your leftover, 7n squared minus 6. And that is it. So again, do whatever you want to on that. You can break it down like we did on this one and pull out your GCF, or you can just kind of guess and check it. Okay. Any questions? Is everybody okay? All right, I'm gonna stop sharing, stop recording.